Hello and welcome to the Raptors Weekly Extra Podcast for the week of October 17th. I'm your host, William Liu. Joining me on the podcast is a good friend and former guest appearance member on the podcast, Joe Wolfond of theScore and other things. And of life, really. What's up?
Joe Wolfond of life.
Yeah, you're of life. You're alive.
I suppose, man. That's high praise.
That's high praise. You are alive. He's alive, and he's a big Raptors fan, as I think some of you guys know. I think, I don't know, man, you got to be a pretty big Raptors fan to own multiple Morris Peterson jerseys.
Yeah, definitely. I've been there through the lean times, and it's nice to be a part of the good times now. And I couldn't even tell you where those Morris Peterson jerseys are now. That's how good things have gotten.
Wow.
So,
where would you put Mop Pete in your all-time Raptors? What do you make? Is he a top 10 all-time Raptor, Mop Pete?
As far as like pure skill goes, I think definitely not. But as far as where he resides in the heart and mind, I think
sad, pathetic Raptors pantheon.
He's definitely up there. Like he's way up there as far as games played. He had the Iron Man streak. I think he probably still does. So if you want to think about a guy who has been a part of, who's spanned generations and eras in Raptors lore, he's been there through a lot of it. So I think when you think about the franchise's history, his face comes to mind. Sure, he's up there with Amir and the other the long tenured dudes who maybe weren't exceptional, but
he's kind of like the swingman version of Amir.
Yeah.
In that kind of both longevity and also production. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Morris Peterson, who is now a somewhat hilarious broadcaster on TSN.
Oh, brother.
Who likes to wear hats and dye his hair like he's 25, but it's cool. Mop Pete, we love you. We are here to talk about the Raptors in preseason. I can't believe preseason is still happening. So for today's episode, we will talk about preseason, what we've seen so far in preseason. That's pretty much it. We'll then talk about scenarios in which the Raptors can beat the Cavs and superfluous topics such as this. Some minor trade rumors that were included in the Zach Lowe predictions column. We'll take some Twitter questions, and we'll probably also talk about what type of offenses will concern the Raptors' defense in the coming season. So let's start from preseason, which everyone is dying to hear about. The Raptors I think they're 3-2 in preseason, which is meaningless, but I had to mention it. What's one thing that's impressed you about preseason so far, or stood out to you in preseason so far?
Siakam, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about like the buzzwords that you hear when you talk about this dude are like his energy, his motor, and those things have definitely been on display. But like I've been pretty impressed with like his hard skills that I didn't necessarily think we were gonna see. He runs the floor incredibly well, and his hands are pretty solid. Like I've seen him he's had a couple of nice post moves, and he's looked pretty comfortable, like handling the ball, passing the ball, putting it on the floor occasionally. And I don't know, I think he's like uniquely qualified, I think, to excel during preseason when most of the other dudes he's playing against are going at like 50%. And maybe the Raptors have like a lot of those dudes like who just don't have another gear, like have no chill, like Powell and Lowry.
Cory Joseph.
Yeah. But he's left me feeling pretty confident about his ability to get to be part of the rotation this year. And I don't know, I feel like the coaching staff has sort of thrown cold water on the notion of him as a backup center
because of Bebe.
Yeah, which who knows how that's going to play out, but I think if it doesn't work out with Bebe, which it very well might not, I've got a greater measure of confidence than I did at the start of the preseason that Siakam might be able to step in and soak up some of those minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think obviously what stands out with Siakam is like he's got this incredible motor. He's active, moving around, and everything like that. But like you said, I think he does have some hard skill that I don't think he gets a lot of credit for. We've seen him guard in switches against some smaller players, and he's moved his feet quite well. He could definitely stand to get stronger and work on that jump shot. But yeah, like you said, that's a useful player. I mean, it's early now, but would you hazard a player comp for Siakam at like 3 years from now? What kind of player he will be?
I don't know. Maybe like Darrell Arthur, somebody like that. I mean, he's probably a little bit faster, but as far as a guy who just like moves his feet really well, and is super active and
sneaky athletic
and just excels at like all the in between stuff, and is going to get a lot of garbage buckets. He can like knock it down from 10 to 15 feet out. Just someone who's going to be solid and reliable for you in that way. That's just off the top of my head, but
I like Taj Gibson as a potential fit for him, like in terms of a comp if we had to force it, because he's like slightly undersized to play center. But I think with the way the league is going, he could play center, and if he can play center and rebound like a center and block shots like a center and defend switches like a center, that's a very useful player that the Raptors could use down the line. So yeah, Siakam's definitely stood out. I don't know how much of Fred VanVleet you've been seeing, but I don't know. You might have heard that he dropped 31 points on San Lorenzo de Almagro.
Yeah, I watched that game, and I watched.
That's incredible that you watched the game, because the Jays are also playing Game 1 of the ALCS.
I watched it afterwards.
Okay.
I'm not as dedicated as you to watch that preseason game against San Lorenzo live while an ALCS game was going on, but I don't know like what to make of VanVleet. He's obviously undersized.
Yes.
And I don't know. It's tough for me to envision kind of like, I mean, DeLon Wright's out, so maybe you feel you need a third point guard, and there's no reason why he can't be that guy and serve in that role ably. I don't know how much opportunity that's going to leave him. If you look at kind of what DeLon Wright did last year, I don't like he played.
He's ready for minutes.
Like 100 total minutes. Like he wasn't. He was playing in garbage time mostly, and in the couple of games that Lowry sat out to rest.
The Pacers in the next games stand out for DeLon Wright's potential there.
Oh God, yeah. I had nightmares of DeLon Wright getting roasted by Steve Blake.
In the Pistons game, yeah.
That was ugly.
That was ugly.
But VanVleet, I don't know. He's crafty. Like he has that way of sort of just wiggling into the middle of the floor, and he finished some tough kind of off balance floaters, and his jump shot was looking pretty nice. And I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's exceptional at anything.
Exactly.
But he's active on defense. He's obviously going to work really hard, which makes him, to my mind, a totally functional third point guard.
Would you give him the 15th spot over the other guys? I mean, the 15th spot is like, since the Raptors have so much continuity, you're not looking for anything new. Plus, Jared Solinger has been injured. So the 15th spot has been a topic of interest. Do you like him over Drew Crawford or Brady Heslip? I think Brady Heslip is getting a lot of hype as well, because he's had
with that immaculate side part.
He's a handsome guy.
He looks like he walked off the set of Hoosiers.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely stood on a ladder and measured 10 feet to the rim. If for no other reason than that DeLon Wright is out, okay,
and you know would like to have a third point guard on the roster, I think he's probably the guy. I actually really like what I've seen from Drew Crawford.
He's not bad.
He's pretty good.
He's fluid. He's a bit small. That's all. Like he's like shooting guard size, but might be asked to play small forward. But he can do things.
He can totally do things. He's been like very steady.
Very steady. Yeah.
He's looked comfortable, like shooting off the bounce, and like he moves around a lot on offense. He makes things happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I'd be perfectly happy with Drew Crawford. I just think VanVleet right now fills a need. So, to the extent that the 15th roster spot really matters in the big picture, I think you probably just go with the guy that fills a need.
You know who actually could fill a need? This is a sidebar, but SM News came out yesterday night that the Nuggets waived Axel Toupane.
So
there you go. We can maybe get Axel. Look, Axel can play small forward. We kind of need a backup small forward.
Yeah,
I mean, Bruno, unless who we'll talk about as well.
I mean, the 905 still has his rights, no? So unless somebody else signs him, if he decides to go back and play in the D League, as you know, instead of going overseas, then he'll be back with the 905, and
I wouldn't mind
get another look at him down there.
Because he showed things. He cracked an NBA roster, which is, I know it sounds trivial because he's not making any impactful things in the NBA right now, but to even break that mold from the D League to go to the NBA level, one, that's a big success for the Raptors. D League program that they raised a guy like this, and B, it's a big accomplishment for anybody really to crack out of that D League level and go into the NBA. So, Toupane, let's get Toupane back.
Yeah,
and Ronald Roberts, and just
did Ronald Roberts did he play is he part of any team's training camp? Or?
I think he left. I think he's in Europe.
Yeah,
or he's overseas. He could be in China. If you're in China, Ronald, hit me up. I'll give you tips on where to go.
Anyway, I'd give VanVleet that 15th roster spot.
Okay.
What the hell?
Yeah, someone who might be in China soon, Bruno Caboclo.
Wow.
2 years from 2 years, baby. Guangdong Southern Tigers will call you. Bruno has, I joke really, because Bruno actually has looked kind of better. Functional. I think functional is like the operative word with Bruno at this stage of his career. Like, getting to the point of functional it would be important for Bruno. So we've seen Bruno in some extended some extended preseason action now. We saw him play. We saw him get the start out of left field against the
Nuggets, I think.
The Nuggets, right? And he guarded Gallo and played against the Clippers in the fourth quarter comeback, and now he's played against San Lorenzo de Almagro. What a name.
Yeah.
What do you think of are you encouraged by the Bruno stuff? Or are you still, I don't know, where do you stand on Bruno? Because he's becoming a bit of a divisive guy in terms of where he stands in the Raptors scheme.
There's no need for him to be a divisive guy. I think the expectations for him at this point should be low enough that there's no need for him to be polarizing in any way. I think whatever you see from him, whatever you ultimately get from him, is probably gravy at this point. They took a big swing with that 20th pick. They knew it was a gamble.
Could have been Clint Capella.
Could have been Clint Capella. Could have been Rodney Hood. It would have been nice, but you can play woulda, coulda, shoulda with so many drafts, and that's not really going to get you anywhere. So
this is definitely not Iguodala over Hoffa. Or Hoffa over Iguodala. My God.
I mean, I really like Rodney Hood. I think he's a fantastic player, but
Terrence Ross. I'm kidding. No, he's better than Terrence Ross.
Oh, but at the time, you had a Raptors roster that didn't really have that many holes.
Yeah.
You had so much NBA talent, and so much depth up and down the roster that I think even in retrospect it made sense to get a guy who was going to be more of a long-term project.
Mm-hmm.
So look, like him showing progress in his age 21 season now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, any good signs that you see from him, any sign that he might be able to be an NBA player one day, I think it was great. Like, even if he was an end of the bench guy, like a role player with that length, and I don't know, hopefully if he can hone that outside jump shot, like you have sort of the makings of a fringy 3-and-D guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's there. I think you can see the outline of that player for sure.
I guess you kind of have to squint with Bruno because things like I like where his body has developed to, right? Because he has put on a lot more weight. He definitely looks to be NBA size. Looks like he can definitely play a small forward, if not also play power forward. His arms are still as long, maybe longer. We need an update on how long Bruno's arms are. All right, Blake, get down to the ACC, measure his arms, bring a tape measure. He's developed better physically. Like, he still has moments where I think the most deflating thing about Bruno is he has like many moments during games where he looks like a little kid, just candy taken from him. Either he dribbles poorly or like he picks up his dribble and gets crowded and he like turns it over. Like, he has oddly poor moments, but I think he also has like weird upside. He kind of gets from A to B in like a very strange, non-linear fashion where he doesn't do all the most basic stuff, but sometimes he's capable of doing like incredible stuff. Like the length on defense is what I like the most. Like the fact that he can like close out over long distances, challenge shots without jumping. Like, that's pretty big. Like, if you're guarding a guy like Gallinari, for example, if you guarded him in the Nuggets game, Gallinari's a tricky guard. Like, he's going to pump fake, he's going to drive, he's going to draw fouls, and you can hit the outside shot, right?
Yep.
And for a guy like Bruno to guard him and not foul him a ton, which I thought was absolutely going to be the case because like Gallo is low-key like a DeRozan type who draws a ton of fouls. The fact that Bruno was able to contest a lot of his shots without fouling, blocking him even once, like that's signs of progress because Gallo's a player, man.
Yeah, I'd add the big blaring caveat that it was preseason and Gallo's a guy who's dealt with a lot of knee injuries and like, probably not looking to like send a message to Bruno Caboclo in the second game of preseason.
Who's looking to send a message to Bruno Caboclo, really?
I mean, like maybe KD at this point, disrespected by the comps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll wait until the Raptors play the Warriors and Bruno's out there guarding KD. We'll see what happens.
I think it's worth monitoring his progress for sure. I imagine he's going to spend the majority of the season with the 905 again.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You just kind of hope to see incremental progress, I think. I don't know that you're going to see him make the capital L leap. But I think you might see him just sort of slowly start to nail down the nuances of the game and just be more tuned in and let the game come a little bit more easily to him instead of forcing the issue, which I really think is what you've seen the last couple of years, is him straining really hard to make things happen.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest improvement for him is going to come just in terms of, this is such a cliche, but letting the game come to him and just feeling a little bit more comfortable and a little more natural out there on the court and not trying to force the issue too much, because the physical tools are definitely there. And if he can knock down the three consistently, then I mean, you have a player there, right? So. This is
like a new. I guess Bruno is like a reflection of how the NBA has changed, because like it's not uncommon at all for teams to gamble on like really athletic big dudes that don't have any skills, right? Like basically just look back through the Supersonics draft history, like when they got like who's that guy?
Johan Petro,
Sine, Bismack Biyombo. Like, unfortunately, a lot of these guys are from Africa, right? But like this type of player where it's just like you draft the body of the player and then you hope to mold and give him some skills, right? And turn
Tyrese Thomas.
Tyrese Thomas, exactly, another guy like that. Bruno is kind of the same way, but it's kind of unprecedented that they've done it with a wingman. But he, I don't know. I guess that's where the way the league is going now. If you can have a guy like Bruno's size and athletic ability, and then add like real skills on that, that's a really good player, especially in today's NBA.
Yeah, it's an interesting test case for that theory too, right? Can you take a guy who, by all accounts, has the perfect body to be a modern wing, but with none of the skill? He hadn't been playing basketball for very long at all when they drafted him.
He knew one basketball player when he came to the NBA.
Right.
It was Kobe, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
when they were like, "Hey, you're the Brazilian Kevin Durant," he's like, "Who's Kevin Durant?" Like, he's that level of. Oh man, he's a baby.
Yeah, you take a lump of completely unmolded clay and
stretch him out,
and you and you see what you can make out of him. And I mean, it's definitely a work in progress, and I think we're all interested to see what comes of it, if anything. But yeah, like you're saying, it's a little bit easier with the big dudes because
they can do like labor work essentially.
Exactly. Less is asked of them. If you're a wing, like it's sort of expected that you're going to shoot the ball, you're going to handle the ball a lot more, and your defensive assignments are going to be like a little bit more complex. Like you're going to cover more floor on defense, and they're just like more to take in. I think.
Yeah.
Not that like it isn't complicated to be an NBA big man, but I just think your assignments are like a little bit more rudimentary, and you know, just like the sort of soft skills are like a little bit rounder and a little bit easier to teach.
Yeah, true. I also think that Bruno, I mean, this is the last thing I'll say with Bruno because it's a lot of time, Bruno time, but like, I think Bruno should be eligible for Rookie of the Year for the next 5 years at least. Anytime he has a good season, he's a Rookie of the Year. Okay, yeah, that's enough of preseason. Like, that's a lot of preseason.
Please, like, just cut the NBA preseason in half.
Yes, please do that.
It's like
we don't need injuries in preseason. Like, what the hell is happening, man?
What is it? It's 7 games this year?
Yeah,
they knocked it down from 8. Is that right?
I mean, some teams are still playing it, I think. But like, you got guys like Yamahimni getting like a partially torn knee and being out 4 to 6 weeks because of preseason action. That's insane.
Why do you need to play 7 preseason games? Like,
why do you have to play San Lorenzo de Almagro? I've never heard of this team. No offense to the Argentinian like champions, they played really well. They represented for themselves, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I've got no problem with playing international teams. I think that's actually like one of the more interesting things about NBA preseason is like seeing how these international teams stack up, and a lot of the time they stack up pretty damn well. Like if you saw what Real Madrid, you saw what Real Madrid did against OKC. Like,
oh, that's true, yeah. Or even Barcelona. Barcelona, that was a close game there too.
Like some of these teams, just sort of by sheer force of selflessness and
taking the game seriously. That's the big thing. Because a lot of NBA teams don't take it seriously.
Taking the game seriously and like having years of playing together and I don't know, they're system teams, right?
Yeah,
like, you see how they can kind of beat NBA teams by and it's not like totally different from how like international teams manage to like challenge the US sometimes in international play. Like they overcome a skill deficit by just like moving the ball around the floor and moving their bodies around the floor perpetually, and
it's a real life Hoosier situation.
Exactly. I mean, like Russell Westbrook said a couple weeks ago that he thinks the European offenses are 10 times better than NBA offenses, which obviously like whatever. Russell Westbrook's going to Russell Westbrook, but
let Russ be Russ.
Yeah, I mean, here's like he was talking about the fact that they move the ball and don't stop moving it, and that's what makes them better. Which is like a weird thing for Russ Westbrook to say.
It's a weird thing for any Thunder player to say.
But yeah, that's like one interesting thing about NBA preseason, and like one of very few. Like I think they could have 2 or 3 or 4 games, and it would be perfectly fine.
Didn't Anthony Parker lead like Maccabi Tel Aviv or Maccabi Haifa to a victory here in the ACC in like 2006, something like that? I mean, if I'm misremembering that.
I don't know.
I mean, it would have
been Tel Aviv, right?
Yeah. I'm going to look it up now, but... yeah, while we do that, though, this is enough on preseason. This is so much on preseason. Let's talk about sort of more... look ahead to the regular season. So, I think 2 questions are concerning me right now in terms of the Raptors. So, number one, it's... What is the ceiling for the Raptors? Like, is there any potential way for the Raptors to beat the Cavs? So, I mean, I'm sure we're in agreement now, but like, as presently constructed for both teams, when healthy, there's no way for the Raptors to beat the Cavaliers.
In a playoff series?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's a...
No, you know it. The Raptors cannot beat the Cavs in one healthy with teams as currently constructed.
I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't give them much of a chance. So what I'm saying is, if the Raptors, like, I guess, in what scenarios, aside from injury, because obviously, like, if LeBron goes down, all bets are off, right? But LeBron never goes down.
He's a selfish lover. But in what scenarios in which the Raptors can beat the Cavs? I mean, like maybe a trade, for example, right? Like I think that's probably the thing. If the Raptors somehow swing for a trade, maybe they upgrade the power forward position. Probably they upgrade the power forward position, considering that's the one. But maybe they, I don't know, add a big small forward and slide Carroll to the 4. Like what scenario? Like I guess trade scenario. I guess like who if the Raptors got someone like I don't know, Paul Millsap or LaMarcus Aldridge, which were mentioned not as reports or anything, just like possibilities of what might happen by Zach Lowe in his annual 30 Crazy Predictions column, where he talked about maybe a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge becomes available, or Paul Millsap if the Hawks season goes to shit. Like, would that be enough? If the Raptors got Millsap or Aldridge, would that be enough to overcome the Cavs?
Maybe. Like, it really depends on what you're giving up to get those guys.
Let's say you give up, because Millsap is at least an expiring year, right? And I don't know how much a team could possibly get for a rental, but if they got like I don't know Ross and a future first round pick, that should be enough. And I guess you have to match salaries. You might have to toss in like Sullinger, but like if you get Millsap, you're never playing Sullinger anyway.
Millsap would be an incredible fit. I mean, I know we were dreaming on it all last season. Yes. But the problem as I see it this year, same as it was last year, is what do you give up? There are so few realistic trade packages that are going to make sense for both sides. Mm-hmm. Like you start with Atlanta and you think about what do they want. If they decide that they're going to move on from Millsap, he has an expiring contract, whatever, the Dwight Howard thing doesn't work out the way they hoped, and they're blowing the whole thing up. So what does Atlanta want back, for Paul Millsap?
Terrence Ross. Everyone wants Terrence Ross. He's the hottest commodity in the market. An elite 3-point shooting wing. I mean, who would?
I actually think Terrence Ross would be a good fit in Atlanta. Like
he would be. Yeah.
He
have great sets.
He is a great catch and shoot guy.
And they have great sets to get catch and shoot opportunities.
Yeah, especially from the corners.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a good fit, but I don't like I don't know, Terrence Ross, a couple of first round picks. I don't know. Does that get it done?
Let's say hypothetically that gets it done. Would that team, so the Raptors minus Ross and probably minus Sullinger to match salaries and stuff, minus Ross, minus Sullinger, plus Millsap, would this dream scenario where the Raptors get Millsap, who is like a perfect fit for the team, would that would that be enough to beat the Cavs? Because I'm like, I don't even know. Like, if the Warriors can lose if the Cavs can beat the Warriors, which it was a bit fluky, but still, if they're even remotely comparable, like how I don't know. It's a bit depressing sometimes to think about the Raptors ceiling with the Cavs being in the equation.
Yeah, I mean, the one question that they need to be able to solve is, like, what do you do about LeBron? And Millsap gives you a lot of different things.
Bruno, come on. Bruno's...
Millsap gives you like a lot of different things, a lot of different looks on offense, and a lot of more flexibility on defense. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that he helps you solve that problem.
You got Peterson, who can kind of guard LeBron. Not really. You got Carroll, who can kind of guard LeBron. Not really. Bruno can definitely guard LeBron. Yeah. Oh God.
It's
LeBron's impossible. I think this is the conclusion
I think at the end of the day, you're kind of just waiting for him to slip.
On the court, like Steph Curry style. we need to get Donatas Motiejunas to slip on the court.
Yeah,
he's a free agent. We can get Donatas.
You need that banana peel that's just going to knock him down a couple runs.
Yeah.
I don't like. It's got to happen, and sooner than later. Honestly, I think, like coming up on.
He's
like
almost played
50,000 NBA minutes, like with regular season playoffs.
He's almost played as much as like Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I mean he's surpassed Larry Bird, Magic Johnson as far as like
Iverson.
Career minutes played. Like,
yeah,
it's really insane, and you've sort of seen in the last couple regular seasons that he has like taken a step or two back.
Mm-hmm.
But then you watch him in like the last 3 games of the NBA Finals last year, and
he's dropping like 40 points. He led.
Those were like that's his best stretch of basketball, I think, like that I've ever seen him play. So I don't know when is that decline coming. You know,
it's never coming. LeBron is literally a superhuman. I guess that's the depressing thing. But I mean, even in that scenario, I still think the Raptors should trade for Millsap if he becomes available. I think the Raptors would love to.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's that breaking any news there. I think the Raptors would love to trade for Millsap, and he would fit perfectly. And also, you get his bird rights. You can go over the cap to sign him and Lowry. It's not a bad team going forward. Like that's a lot of talent.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna sound weird because if you trade for Millsap, you end up having both him and Lowry's free agency. Coming up next summer, but it almost makes more sense because if you manage to swing a trade like without giving up too much of value, like if it's Ross and a couple picks or Ross and Zollinger, as long as you're kind of leaving the core rotation intact, I don't know, you re-sign both of those guys next summer. Like, you have bird rights for both.
Yeah.
You end up in the luxury tax, realistically.
The Raptors have made a lot of money recently. They can pay the luxury tax.
But then, I mean, you're thinking about, you have Patterson who's going to be an unrestricted free agent anyway, and you're talking about probably...
I don't want to pay $15 million for Patterson.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're probably going to end up paying Patrick Patterson $15 million a year if you want to re-sign him this offseason. So
you might as well get Millsap for 25.
If you decide, like, let Patterson walk and, you give Millsap, say, 25.
Yeah.
I think
that's still under
that
would still be under the luxury tax. Like, there's ways the Raptors would still be under the luxury tax with Millsap and Lowry if they don't sign Patterson. But I don't know, man. Millsap's a dream.
I just think it makes, like you go into the offseason, Lowry is going to be turning 31.
Yeah.
And
Millsap, I think, is also 31.
Right.
31, yeah.
But right now, I don't know. It's tricky. You wonder what the Raptors' ceiling is going to be and whether it's worth it to give a 31-year-old Kyle Lowry 5 years and something close to a max deal when this team seems to have essentially maxed out its potential.
How dare you?
That becomes a tough decision. But if you go into that offseason suddenly armed with like Paul Millsap's bird rights and have a chance to extend both of those guys at the same time and move forward with long-term deals for those two, DeRozan, Valanciunas, I think you're kind of...
That would be the second best team in the East, bar none. I don't care what the Celtics are doing.
It's easier to justify it that way, and you can envision them moving forward for 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, depending on how long Lowry's going to hold up, but
forever. I wouldn't be able to emotionally handle the Lowry breakdown.
I just think it almost becomes easier to justify a big long-term deal for Lowry if you have someone like Millsap in the fold.
Yeah, exactly. Or you might as well make that kind of double down on that bet because if you only bet on Lowry, you still take just as much risk, but you don't have as much a reward as you would have with someone like Millsap. It's kind of like the Grizzlies, for example. Like, yeah, okay, their team is old, it's expensive. Whatever, they're ready to win now. Go sign Chandler Parsons, and it's a bit of a risk, but who cares? This is you either bust, or the bust scenario is the same. You're going to be terrible, or you profit and you win and you hit big, and you either hit for a bigger jackpot with Lowry and Millsap together, defeating LeBron and losing to the Warriors. But that's fine. I'm fine with losing to the Warriors.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, you just want to put yourself in the best possible position to be that team that can step in if and when LeBron starts to slip or LeBron gets hurt or, whatever happens.
LeBron goes to play baseball.
The Cleveland situation kind of starts to fall apart a little bit.
LeBron says F you to Dan Gilbert and buys the team. Can't play anymore. I'm fine with that trade-off. If Dan Gilbert got his team taken away from him.
Sure.
Yeah. God damn it, LeBron. And
then, Millsap would be among the best guys, I think, that you could trade for.
Aside from Boogie.
Boogie's
are the Raptors. It's happening. He wore Raptor shorts.
Yeah.
He wore Raptor shorts.
And he's been rocking that Nazem Kadri jersey.
Exactly. This is like the yellow cake George Bush excuse.
he could not be sending stronger signals.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he's wondering what's taking so long to get a deal done.
Yeah, snakes in the grass. Toronto has garden snakes and grass.
Wow.
Boom, right there.
Yeah.
What's in God's plan?
Read the tea leaves.
Toronto, how are you going to stop God's plan? Messiah's the God, the Messiah.
Yeah.
There you go. It's all there. Guys, stay woke, guys. Stay woke. This is like KD to the 6. It's Boogie to the 6.
You think he's getting traded this season?
No.
No?
No. Because the Kings have one last chance with him, basically. They can run through this season, and the next offseason they'll have a lot of cap room. If they can sign a bunch of guys and keep Boogie, that's fine. But I think like Boogie's his trade value is going to be there regardless of how many years left on his contract. I think bird rights alone are enough to keep Boogie, considering you want to re-sign him. But anyway, that's enough predictions and trade talks and preseason and stuff. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with Twitter questions. All right, welcome back to the Raptors Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined by Joe Wolfond, who has entertained questions on Morris Peterson, Paul Millsap, and all the other famed Raptors of the past and future. We are now going to entertain your questions on Twitter. So if you ever have a question for us, add us at Raptors Republic. We will answer you either on a podcast or on Twitter if we're lazy. So here goes. First one comes from @UpInMyTree. How do you see the third point guard spot playing out once DeLon's back, assuming Fred VanVleet has it to start the season? How do you see that playing out, man? Because I think it's pretty easy to see how it plays
out. With VanVleet going back to the 905?
Yeah, pretty much. Or sitting on the roster at least maybe as a fourth point guard-ish.
Yeah, I mean, you probably got to figure that DeLon's going to have some cobwebs to shake off. So maybe when DeLon comes back, he spends a bit of time with the 905 to
he definitely will
get himself back into playing shape.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he is still very much in the franchise's long-term plans, and he's going to be the primary focus as far as development goes. So
I like DeLon, man.
I mean,
he's a good player.
Yeah,
smart player, very smart player.
He is. Like, when he's not getting roasted by Steve Blake.
That was one thing, man. You're forgetting the times he roasted Jorge Gutierrez and like whoever the Nets were playing at point guard last year. Who did the Nets play at point guard?
Last game of the season? Shane Larkin?
Donald Sloan?
Yeah.
I thought Donald Sloan was like a lead singer in like an alt-rock band. And like a
Sloan?
He could just be Sloan.
It's interesting, though, because I wonder if you take a guy like DeLon Wright, who I think the franchise probably, I don't know if they have high hopes for him, but they have hopes for him.
Right.
In some capacity, probably to be a backup point guard. Mm-hmm. It's just, when does that happen? Like, where does he fit in?
If you re-sign Lowry, if you have Cory Joseph here for the long term.
Exactly. Like he's sort of there as an insurance policy right now, right? Like, in the event that they can't work out a deal with Lowry.
Or Joseph eventually.
Right. But they have Joseph for another 3 years. Like, depending on what happens this offseason, they may have Lowry for another 4 or 5. So you're trying to bring this guy along, but he's blocked by 2 other guys. And I don't know, it's tough. It's tough to bring a guy along when he's not going to see that much run at the NBA level. So does it benefit them more to have him with the NBA team kind of riding the bench, or does it make more sense for them to have him starting with 905 and say have VanVleet spend the season as the third point guard with the Raptors?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, if Lowry sits out a couple of games to rest, or if one of those guys gets injured, then you call up Wright if and when he gets healthy to play minutes on the NBA roster.
Yeah. I mean, obviously VanVleet will be the bottom of the pecking order, like you're suggesting, when everyone's healthy, but since there's so much uncertainty with the DeLon Wright situation going in, and obviously you want to get Lowry more rest this season, keep him healthy for Dwayne Casey, please keep him healthy for playoffs. No more top 10 in minutes, man. Please. There will be chances for VanVleet, so he's played well. He's done well for himself. All right, next one comes from MR_Malice14. How concerned should we be that the starters played one game together so far? Still don't have a good idea of how Sully fits. How concerned are you?
Not very.
Is it because the Raptors have an astounding amount of continuity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have... They're top 10, I think, maybe even top 5 as far as percentage of minutes from last year that are returning to the roster this season.
But they lost Bismack and Louis Scola and James Johnson.
Yeah.
Every time I see a Raptors preview that says that, I just close the tab.
I mean, the Bismack loss is real.
Yeah, the other ones are positives, not negatives, man.
But I honestly think that Sullinger, I still would rather see him in the backup 5 role than as a starting 4, but they seem intent on having him as a starting 4, and I think that he's going to slide in there pretty seamlessly and fill that Scola role and be better in it than Scola was, at least at the end of last season, when Scola was just totally washed.
Oh, he's washed. He's still washed.
But, no, I'm not worried. And Sullinger, seemed pretty attuned to the offensive playbook.
In the first game against the Warriors?
Yeah, against the Warriors. He looked super spry. And
sleek. Svelte. He's
Svelte is pushing it, but
he dropped from 300 last season to 260 now, which I think he did at the start of last season as well for the Celtics. But
I think maintaining it is the issue.
I mean, that's what you. I think that's a good point there, where you said, he seems pretty attuned to the offense already. He's a very smart, intuitive player, and the Scola role, basically, the Scola role is intent to be a supporting character in the starting lineup, right? Obviously, you got to defend, which might be an issue for Sullinger, but at least on offense, you just have to be that guy that reads the play, keeps the ball moving, because Jonas is kind of a bit of a stumbling block in their plans because he doesn't have the greatest basketball IQ,
right.
Not the most mobile. Sullinger is the guy that needs to move the ball and be functional on offense. And I think that Sullinger is more than comfortable in doing that. He's a very heady player as it is.
Yeah. I think if there's one thing you can say that you maybe would have liked to have seen more of is just Sullinger and Valanciunas playing together and kind of seeing how or if that's going to work.
Yeah.
And this is probably wishful thinking, given that they stuck with that starting front court of Valanciunas and Scola pretty much for all of last season, but you figure that maybe if they see that front court enough times and see, that it is or isn't working, then they can kind of take strategy from there. And I'm a little skeptical of that starting front court. And like I say, I'd rather see Sullinger playing back at 5. I just think that's a better role for him, especially with the team that we have and the fact that we kind of have a need at backup center. But I don't know. I guess you sort of hope that they'll figure that out as they go along. So
yeah. I guess that's what Mark's saying here. It would have been nice to have some of these questions answered in preseason, but hopefully Sullinger's fine. I think he's smart enough; he'll fit in just fine. Next one comes from @RapsFan1237. The new norm. The new norm. What's the new norm? Or is that I don't know, norm is a new norm. I don't know. Do you think Kojo has a realistic shot at 6th man of the year this year? Season 2 of high minutes, extra time for more Lowry rest. What do you think? Cory Joseph, 6th man.
Yeah, definitely. I thought
if Drake makes the track, it's there.
He's
1 for 1.
I think that's what we need.
Drake is the Matt Stairs of pinch hitting with awards. There's two people cannot be more unlike than Matt Stairs and Drake, aside from they're both Canadian.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of hope that Drake at some point would be able to work in the just getting my ass hammered into one of his verses. That's a kind of deep cut Matt Stairs reference, but
Matt Stairs is great.
Kojo, yeah, absolutely. I thought he had a pretty good case last year. He got, I think, 1 third place vote, if that.
Eric Smith probably. Doug Smith, Eric Smith, one of the Raptors guys.
The problem is that voters kind of have shown a tendency to value scoring off the bench when it comes to voting for 6th man. You usually see
Jamal Crawford,
Lou Williams, J.R. Smith. Did Iguodala win it a couple of years ago? I feel
No.
No?
No. He was starting until he got to the Warriors.
I know, but did he not win it 2 years ago with the Warriors?
I don't think so. I mean, like, guys like, even like Maurice Spates, for example, it was a perfect example of this. Like, basically, gunners out the bench get hype. Maurice Spates got a lot of hype, even though he was clearly at best, the 7th best player in the Warriors. Definitely, Iguodala would have been the best player off the bench for them. Yeah, like.
Yeah. So
you don't think he'll score enough?
Yeah, Codra's not a scorer. Like, he does so many things so well.
Do you like his revamped jump shot? It's slightly revamped. It looks like there's more arc on the ball.
Yeah. I don't know whether I like it or I don't.
You like it if he hits it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sort of like if it works for him, great. Like there are a lot of guys who have like terrible mechanics on their jump shot, but for whatever reason it works for them. Like Kevin Martin was one of the better jump shooters in the league for a ton of years, and that thing was extremely ugly. Kojo has kind of like a weird release. It's a slow release, and it's not the prettiest looking jump shot.
But at least he's quick, so he gets separation for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Cory Joseph, yeah, he's just not big enough a name, I think. Yeah, plus it's like 6-man, like nobody watches like garbage. Because 6-men tend to come from mediocre teams. I think that too. And like, I don't think a lot of people pay attention to the mediocre teams in the first place, so then they just look at points per game. That's why Jamal Crawford wins this award so many times. I think like Zach LaVine is like a candidate before it. Like I think even Terrence Ross, if he like scores a lot, he might get more buzz for 6-man. I think that's also part of it too. Like the Raptors don't have a go-to 6-man. Like the Clippers, for example, have exactly one and a half good bench players, and Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers half the time is okay. When he doesn't need to do his homework.
Yeah, I mean Zach Randolph's going to be coming off the bench for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, there you go. Zach Randolph, stretch 5.
Yeah, well.
He's shooting 40% from deep so far on 13 attempts.
Wow.
13 attempts. He's 5 of 13. Yeah. All right, we got another one from Mark. Based on what you've seen and heard, which one of Bebe and Jakob had the inside track on the 4th pick? So let me ask you, Joe. Your inside information. No, we got no inside information at all. Unfortunately. Bebe or Jakob? Pretty sure it's Bebe.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's Bebe.
You gotta see what you have in Bebe, right? This is the time. You gotta shit or get off the pot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. This is like, I don't know. You gotta give him a shot at a certain point, and like now appears to be the time. You know, the role is sort of there for the taking, and I think it's kind of his to lose. Mm-hmm. And he may well lose it. I don't have a ton of confidence in him kind of taking that role and running with it. Mm-hmm. But you give him a chance, and you kind of see what he can do when actually given significant minutes. And I think good news is you do have options if it doesn't work out. They're not the most palatable of options, at least until they swing that trade for Boogie.
It's happening, guys.
But
that's our inside information. After signing Boogie.
Yeah. I think Poeltl, I don't know. You can afford to be patient with him. Yeah. And give him some run in the D League. I haven't been particularly impressed with what I've seen from him either.
He does move around fluidly. I can't. I swear it's not a race-based comp. I can't unsee Cody Zeller. It's just not very sexy, but whatever, man. Whatever.
Cody Zeller's a nice player, though.
He's a nice player, yeah, exactly.
But, I don't know, he's so vanilla.
Yep. Another race-based comp. he's like watching white paint dry.
Vanilla in its purest form is actually like a brown liquid.
Wow.
So
wow.
Don't be fooled by the icing on those cupcakes. You know what I mean, though.
Exactly.
He doesn't he's the least exciting prospect I think that you could possibly imagine, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. We don't need somebody to be super exciting, but nothing he's done has made me think, okay, this is the guy. This is the guy who's going to anchor, the second unit and step into Bebe's shoes and be a backline rim protector, or even I don't know. I just don't know what I see in him as a player long term. What do you see him becoming?
The NBA is kind of moving away from his archetype as well, but I think he's fine. I think he's fine. He's got good
He's
size.
fine.
He has mobility. He understands how to play clearly. He could work on some things like getting stronger and definitely can work on his defense a little bit because he doesn't. If you're going to be a center, you have to be great at defense. Otherwise, you have to be amazing on offense. And I don't really foresee him being amazing on offense. So he needs to be able to do a bit of everything. But
to be fair, like
fine.
rookie big men are very, very, very rarely any good at defense.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay. Let's switch it up here. Okay, this one from Matthew Wiranga at FunkyMonk89. As a new fan this season, based in London, UK, I guess he wanted to clarify, not London, Ontario. London, Ontario is trash.
Whoa.
Are you a Western grad?
No.
Okay.
But I mean,
Western's also trash. What's the best way to watch and keep up with the Raptors and the NBA? So from London. I'm not sure what the broadcast situation is there. I mean, a lot of games are played late at night, so you'd have to stay up until like 3 a.m. to watch.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but I don't know. It's League Pass. League Pass is always a great measure. I mean, in terms of the Raptors community, come to Raptors Public. It's a great site. Raptors HQ is acceptable. Kidding. I like those guys. Yeah, read Raptors HQ. They really got great voices over there. Listen to podcasts. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to keep up with the Raptors. Like just even on Twitter, just being on Twitter. I think the Raptors Twitter community is fun. It's light-hearted.
sometimes.
Yeah, as long as they're not like saying like Kyle Lowry is shit, like, or saying Luis Scola should start over Patrick Patterson. Like, you know, if you don't say flagrantly offensive things.
Things got dark in that in the middle of that Indiana series, I feel.
Oh my god. Well, you know,
things can
thanks
take a turn.
Yeah, well, we got it. We will always have to credit Frank Vogel for playing Ty Lawson for like 30 minutes in Game 5.
Shouts to Frank Vogel and Buck Showalter.
Yes.
Two great enablers of Toronto sports playoff success.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to follow the NBA. It's a good time to follow the NBA, and for the Raptors, like there's the blog scene for the Raptors is pretty good. We got some podcasts that you're currently listening to as well, so that's a good start. All right, next one comes from at Jay Grewal 15. What's Kyle Lowry's monetary value? Okay, how much is a human life really worth? I mean, come on, no. What do the Raptors offer him this season then? It's the max. Period. It's the max. He's already said it's got to be close. I want a 5-year. Like he didn't say I want a 5-year deal, but Woj says he wants a 5-year deal. You got to imagine you put 2 and 2 together. That's something. The max or close to it.
Yeah, let's hope that close to it is where they land. And
like with DeRozan, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Look, if he takes close to the max, and we sign Paul Millsap to the max, and we don't sign Patrick Patterson to $15 million a year, which I think would be too much money for Patrick Patterson. It's just unexciting. You know? Not bad. You can avoid the luxury tax.
Yeah. I mean, even, like given that they have Lowry's bird rights, they don't have to max him out in order to give him substantially more money than he can get from another team. Mm-hmm. They're able to offer him that 5th year and, higher annual raises. So
hopefully the 5th year is a team option. Because I'm squeamish about 36-year-old, $35 million Kyle Lowry.
Yeah,
or $30 million Kyle Lowry.
I would not bank on that.
Yeah.
Team options, have sort of fallen by the wayside, I feel.
Masai's also a big player option guy. He loves player options. He gives player options to everybody. Not DeRozan, but...
Lowry's current deal.
Joseph.
Biombo,
they had to kind of give him that because there's no way they're going to keep him for 2 years with that money.
But that's how it goes. I mean, that's throwing in the player option is sort of what allows you to get somebody on, a semi-affordable deal. Mm-hmm. And a team option is maybe a viable possibility when you're talking about a middle-of-the-road dude, a mid-tier bench player. But when you're talking about a starter, or especially an all-star caliber starter, you're not getting a team option as part of any deal.
Yeah,
right? That's just not happening.
It'll cost a lot, guys. Just don't be surprised when it comes up.
It's gonna cost close to $200 million Like, start preparing yourself for that reality.
It's fine, man. Just if you want to pay Lowry, buy some Wheat and North gear. Because they'll need that money. Okay, next one from Patrick Hergott. Sounds like has to play for the 905, which he has agreed to do if he doesn't make the 15th man. If he doesn't get the 15th roster spot. What about Utah? Seems like Fred VanVleet has 15th locked up. Yeah, VanVleet looks like he has 15th locked up. I have no idea who Jared Uthoff is. Like I saw him play, but I didn't really see him do anything in the San Lorenzo de Almagro game, and I'm still not convinced. If he hasn't played any minutes aside from that game in 5 preseason games, I don't know what's up there. So
yeah, I have nothing to contribute on that front, unfortunately.
Yeah. I look forward to learning who Jared Uthoff is by reading Blake's extensive coverage of the 905 this season. He does the Lord's work there. Okay, next one. A third one from Mark. Wow. Siakam shows great speed and activity. What will be the best way for the Raptors to get him some spot minutes if he can't play 5? That's a great question. How do you get Siakam minutes? Because you said right off the top, Siakam is someone who's impressed you, and he might be a little bit too small to play 5 at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you see Siakam getting minutes? Or what role do you foresee Siakam as the season plays out? Starts in the D-League, probably?
I guess. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's tough to say. From my end, what I would want to see the most, I think, is, I don't know, for him to be like the second big off the bench.
Okay.
And if he comes in to play 5 in small lineups or comes in to play backup 4, it doesn't really matter. You slot him in kind of like as that second big off the bench and, kind of construct the lineup however they see fit. But I just think, I don't know. I honestly think he's shown enough to start the season with the Raptors. I feel like he's ready to contribute. That's me. I don't know. Do you think he starts with the
I think if it's like purely meritocracy and they're trying to win as many games as possible, then sure. I think keeping him with the Raptors, because he does have some utility, even if he's just an energetic dude in the moment. But I think in the first year you can sacrifice at least half the year to give him like skill development in the D-League. And plus it'll give him more development opportunities because he'll get to play more minutes. Right, and I think he might be a guy like Norm where he goes to the D-League and it's immediately obvious that he's too good for the D-League, and he's ready for NBA minutes. So, but I mean, given how Bebe is here and everything like that, Siakam probably starts there. But I do think towards the end of the season he will be an impactful player for the Raptors.
Yeah,
just because he is so energetic and so big and mobile and things like that. There's value there.
Yeah, I mean, I really think. I hate to keep harping on this point, but I really think Peterson needs to be starting.
Yeah. And
I think you could run some pretty interesting and pretty effective reserve lineups with Sullinger at the 5 and Siakam at the 4. I feel like they would kind of complement each other in funky and interesting ways. And like Bebe and Siakam have showed some kind of interesting 4-5 chemistry as well.
Yeah, some high-low passing from Bebe, which you can have replicated with Sullinger, because Sullinger is also a great passer in the post.
Yeah. I would like to see him start the season in the NBA, but I think you make a good point as well, and this is sort of what we were talking about with DeLon Wright as well. It's like, do you want to have a guy like that, playing minimal minutes with the NBA club, or do you want to have him kind of developing and playing big minutes with the D-League? And I don't know. It's a tough question to answer because there's something to be said for either kind of experience, and I think there's a lot to be gained by being with the NBA roster, practicing with the NBA team, and learning by seeing and by being around these dudes and playing with these dudes all the time.
That's true. Okay, we'll take 2 more and then we'll wrap it up. Jordan Reiger asks, early comparison on the Sabonis versus Jakob draft collection. This is way too early. Way too early. But, I don't know.
I haven't watched Sabonis, so. Have you?
Not really. They've been playing at weird times, like 2 o'clock, because they're in Europe.
Right.
As part of the Global Games Tour. So I don't know. I didn't watch enough of Sabonis. I mean, Thunder fans were hyping him up, but Thunder fans hype up everybody because Thunder fans are, I don't know how to say.
I think especially now, given the position that they're in, they are probably even more inclined than usual to hype up their own dudes.
It's just as good as Durant.
Yeah.
All right, Lithuanian Kevin Durant. Okay, last one then comes from at Mur the Nerd. Okay, I don't know what is that, like a We the North, but or maybe it's rhyming. Anyway, Mraz asks, do you have any forecast of potential midseason trades involving the Raptors? So the Raptors, under Masai Ujiri in 3 years, have made, I think, one trade deadline deal, and it was 2014.
Come on. What am I missing?
He now plays for CSKA Moscow.
Oh, what, Nando De Colo?
Yeah, off today for Nando De Colo.
Jeez.
Yeah, he stood pat, even though I feel like there's been a lot of push for Raptors, at least from the fan base, to make an off-season or mid-season trade. Do you see that scenario happening this year? I mean, aside from the inevitable Boogie trade, which is for sure happening. Woj has already had that tweet scheduled in his tweet deck.
It's so tough to get a read at this point in time on what the trade market is going to be like, and so much of it depends on the direction that the other teams in the NBA are taking.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd love for a guy like Paul Millsap to become available, but if Atlanta's cruising and things are kind of working out with Dwight Howard and Millsap continues to play at like an all-star, all-NBA level, then they're not really going to have any reason to trade him. And they're going to want to hang on to his bird rights, and they're going to want to re-up him in the offseason. So, I don't know, there are so many different factors at play. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that there are, 28 other teams who, if somebody like that was available, are going to be trying to put together their own package to get him. So, I think the Raptors are, pretty well placed to put together a trade offer for like a borderline star.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There are definitely teams who are going to be able to put together, I think, more attractive packages to lure.
I hate Boston so much.
To lure a guy like a Millsap or even a Boogie Cousins.
Can you imagine if the Celtics also got Millsap? Man.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that.
That'd be a deadly team.
I remember being so relieved that they did not manage to swing a trade at the trade deadline last year, and
then they got Millsap anyway.
They got Horford. They got Horford for free. They didn't even have to touch their treasure trove of assets, and they still have those in the bank, and they can still use those to pry another star loose, and that's scary.
Still have Gershon Yabusele.
Oh yeah.
That's a great name, Gershon Yabusele. Okay, I have a very under the radar pickup for the Raptors to make this at the trade deadline.
Let's hear it.
I think every year you see veterans getting waived and stuff, bought out, and if the Grizzlies season goes poorly, Vince Carter gets bought out. The Raptors pick up Vince Carter on a veterans minimum contract. This is my prediction, and it paves the way for them to have Vince be a part of the organization going forward, because whether there's obviously some
seamless transition
trouble.
to the coaching staff.
I would love that. Coach Vince and Coach Jerry Stackhouse, we would dominate the coaching game in 2000, man. We would dominate that game and the dunk contest in 2000.
I would love that, man. I think it would be really nice to bring him back to the fold.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be a great headline, it'd be a great story. It'll pave the way for future business endeavors and stuff like that, and also for the organization as a whole. But also, just in terms of basketball fit, the Raptors could use a veteran 3 type, and Vince, do you see that Instagram video recently where Vince is throwing down a windmill dunk? The guy's 39.
Yeah.
So
he's still got some ups.
He's got them ups, man. All right.
Didn't he tear his Achilles last year?
Or
2 years ago?
I think Vince is healthy. He's healthy. He's healthy-ish. Like, he's healthy for a 39-year-old.
I mean,
basketball player.
Yeah, but your point is, if you're picking up Vince, you're not doing it to improve the team.
Not really. It's mostly for the headlines.
It's a branding possibility.
The branding possibilities are endless. All right. The branding possibilities are endless, but this podcast is not endless. This is rambled on for an hour, so thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Joe Wolfond for coming on the podcast and doing this and inviting me into your lovely home. We're filled with Pablo Picasso paintings and other things that your brother has painted. Joe, where can we find can we find you on Twitter, and where can we find your work in general?
You can find me on Twitter at Joey_W, spelled out, double Y-O-U.
Yeah.
And you can follow me if you can stomach the occasional tweet about tennis.
Joe Wolfond is an amazing tennis writer. Okay, he's an amazing tennis writer.
It's pretty niche, but I do also tweet a lot about basketball. So if you can sift through all the scalding hot Gael Monfils takes, you'll find some nuanced Raptors takes as well. And you can find my writing at theScore. I write about the NBA and about the ATP and WTA. And hopefully hope to be back on these airwaves as well throughout the season. So thanks again for having me on, man.
Yeah, for sure. All right. See you guys. We'll come back next week.